Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Boss Rush here on, my goodness, where are we? July 10th, 2026. My name is Chris Melasinos. I'm the host of Boss Rush, and I'm joined here today with two of my three regular co-hosts, Dean Takahashi and Susan Cummings. How are you both doing today?
Very good. Thank you for doing this again, Chris.
Of course. Yeah, the goal is get friends together to dissect, biggest stories in the games industry, and to get to spend some time together here as we close out into the weekend. So super grateful for you all being able to make it today. And we're sorry we're missing Mark. I know he is traveling. And thanks for those of you that are joining us in the chat there. Make sure you get any stories, comments, things that we should be discussing into the chat there so we see it. But I have a feeling that we already know some of the bigger stories to lean into. So
I was going to say, it feels like the industry's burning. The world is burning. I'm in Cardiff right now, and it's like 90 degrees outside, and it has been for as long as I can remember. And it's 5:30. So Darren, I hear you. I've got a scotch next to me. Let's go.
Yes. Yes.
Let's fix things today. Let's go.
It's been crazy. I think last week it hit 112 degrees here in the Northern Virginia, D.C. area. We are fortunate enough that years and years ago we put a pool in at our house, and kids were all back from where they live out in the world, and we had a bunch of people over, and the water was like 94 degrees. Like it was, so there was like no cooling off. This region is not equipped for that kind of heat. So
no, air conditioning is not the norm in Wales by any means.
Yeah,
but it's changing rapidly. Like we got air conditioning put in a few years ago because we're soft. And almost everyone I know here seems to be in the process of sourcing air conditioning units now.
Yeah. Like we were saying, the world has changed. But how are you doing, Dean? How's the weather been treating you out there? Dean?
It's not bad. Not bad here. It's we maybe sent some of our heat over to you guys in Europe, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's a little hot, but reasonably pleasant. So
nice. Well, I remember.
It's talking about burning though. I mean, I had to. I was planning for a quiet week this week, right? And then Xbox announced their news on Monday. I knew it was going to happen on Monday. I didn't know it was going to be this bad.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, we'll get into that. But
yeah. Hey.
Yeah, it's been a very busy week.
Yeah.
Just,
but before we
keep up with everything.
Before we pivot to that, let me share with you a quick, at least fun memory or hot and sweaty memory from GDC's past. Back when Vampire the Masquerade launched. For Activision, that was the first kind of launch deal. Yeah, the first launch deal that I worked on, and so we paid for half of the launch party and all that stuff, and it was held in a warehouse where everyone's dressed in black because it's Vampire the Masquerade, and the power went out, and it was like 105 or 10 degrees in San Francisco. Like streets started to buckle. And so they rushed to bring in like fans and stuff. And it was a hot, sweaty mess. And it was great. But just my God, just absolutely crazy. But so everybody stay safe from this heat. And let's go ahead and jump into it. I mean, obviously, probably I think one of the most consequential weeks we've had in a long time here. So why don't we just jump in and address what's happening right now? Dean, do you want to lead us off?
Yeah. Well, I think I think just opinion on what Microsoft has done this week has gone from different extremes, and like they were being honest and transparent saying, weeks ago that they were in the process of going through a reset of Xbox. Like the next 100 days of Asha Sharma's leadership here meant that they were going to take a hard look at everything and figure out what to do. And then some words started leaking out that there was a somewhat benevolent approach they were taking to some of the studios, 5 studios in particular, where they were going to give them the option of going independent and being sold to somebody else or doing a management buyout, rather than shut them down just like that. So they had a couple of weeks to get that underway, but when they actually announced the layoffs, there's so many things about it that have been controversial as well, right? So first, it's 1,600 layoffs, which by itself is like the largest layoff that Xbox has had in this space, even after 4 layoffs in the last like 3 years, right? And so that's big, but they also announced that in the next year they're going to find 1,600 more jobs to cut, and some of these they've given notice to a variety of folks. They do have like 3,500 union members now, among a staff of what I thought was around 20,000, but maybe there's a different number that other people have that's more accurate than that. But it's a very large chunk. It could be 15% of all of the Xbox people that are going to get hit uh, after they've already had 4 layoffs already. And so like everybody has been saying like, oh, it's too fat an organization. There's too many people. They have too many studios. But they have been cutting as they've been going along already. And so uh, you know uh, it's raising a question of in what way are they cutting to the bone now? And uh, you know, I think the 5 studios that they did cut, they, it's what Composition Labs, it's Ninja Theory. Let's see, I'm blanking on all
Double
of them.
Fine.
Arcade is up in the air, right? They're going through a process with the French labor rules. Double Fine, yeah, and then Undead Labs, right? So those folks all have possibly good outcomes, where 2 have been sold and 2 are going independent, um, and so there's no layoffs to be announced that are Microsoft's doing, because those ones are in transactions now. But they did cut extremely heavily in different places. Like the prime example of one of the biggest cuts is id Software in Dallas. So the maker of the Doom games and Quake, Wolf used to do Wolfenstein, but they uh, they're in a range of anywhere from 90 to 160 people being cut. They have union members where I guess they don't know exactly what's happening for severance there. And they also have a group in Frankfurt in Germany where that has to go through a process. So it's unclear exactly how many are being cut. But for id Software, a studio who I've heard ranges from 180 people on through 240 people. It's more than half the company, right?
Yeah.
And so if id Software had been told, you guys, are going to have deep cuts, they might have opted voluntarily to go the way of the 5 other studios that were independent, right? But it seems like Microsoft still has a plan for them. Um, it might resemble the plan they have for Obsidian, which was also it was kind of on the list and then pulled back, but they didn't, fit in with the other 5 companies. But with Obsidian, they have laid off around 60 people or so. And then what they've done with them is that they're becoming a support studio to work on Fallout, instead of doing their own games, which included the Outer Worlds in the past, but they were also working right now on Avowed 2, and that was canceled. So Obsidian, kind of shifts from being like more like an independent studio within Xbox to now a support studio for somebody else's property, right? So that's happening with them. Id might also fit into that kind of category. Machine Games did the very successful Wolfenstein series, and they also did Indiana Jones, and apparently they have id Tech game engine people working at Machine Games as well, which may explain why they laid off a very large part of the engine team at id Software, right? So anyway, I think people are trying to figure out whether id Software has been gutted and whether it's unable to make its own standalone games now, or there's still some path forward for them to continue making, Quake and Doom games plus their own original games, right? So anyway, I stopped there in case you guys have comments.
Susan.
Yes. Well, it's brutal, right? I mean, what's to say? I think that I really found enlightening John Kimmich's article that he did for you, Dan, on GameSpeed. I think that I don't know if you read it, Chris, but it talked about
the opinion piece on
the burning.
It talked about
the burning platform.
It's really interesting. It talks about Game Pass and the fact that that Game Pass has kind of made these AAA internal first-party games unsustainable. Of course, it's made the whole industry unsustainable, right? These sort of models where we don't have a retail price point. So, I think that what frustrates me is also what he said about the fact that these studios are going to now potentially spin out and have the same exact problems they had at Microsoft, which is that the teams are big and expensive and so forth.
Right.
And at the same time, we have, consumers or some consumers saying they don't want AI. And, we have teams trying to figure out ways to make games with smaller groups and be more efficient. And all of these things are at odds. And I think it's making it really hard for the industry to figure out how to move forward, because 3,000, Lee and I were talking about it earlier, 3,000 people losing their jobs can be somewhere in there are going to be new studios.
Right.
Is the only glimmer of good that comes out of that is that there will be new studios. And I think as a studio head, we have to figure out ways to do things faster and leaner. And like id Software, when I was at 2K, I remember meeting with Todd Holland's head. I don't think Todd's there anymore, but when Todd was running the studio, who I love.
Yeah.
I remember him saying to me, do you know it's only 20 people here making these games? They were incredibly small. It was 20 people. This is like 2006 or something like that. It was a long time ago. But even at the time, that was remarkable that they were making games with such small studios. And so I kind of wonder what happened on the journey along the way that it went from 20 people to the kind of numbers that it is now.
Yeah.
Look, it all sucks. And there's so many factors involved in it. But I think that I like to hope that the good that can come out of it is that we can get back to making smaller, leaner,
sustainable
teams. Yeah, because we're always going to come back to this, right? AAA games means hiring on lots of people, shipping a game, and then trying to figure out what to do with a bunch of mouths to feed. And nobody wants to lay people off. And it's, we're all going to demonize Microsoft about it. And I think that a lot of things have been handled really poorly here, but it still comes back to the fact that as an industry, we have to figure out a way to structure things differently. I feel like we're starting to get closer to the film model with freelancers, small teams. How do we come together? I said to someone the other day, I wonder what the first game is that we're going to see that has multiple publishers on the splash screens like you see with films. You know, when you see a movie and you see like 5 splash screens of like the companies involved, I think games are going to start getting like that. You're going to have the company that specializes in that genre. You'll have the company that specializes in influencers and, this, that, and the other, and they'll all come together to make something. And, again, maybe
probably a good idea, right? For
It is.
like it doesn't exist in the industry right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Why don't we all collaborate together as even as publishers and say, we'll put a little bit in, you put a little bit in, we'll put a little bit in, and we'll collaborate together. I
Yeah.
feel like we're finally headed there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also on the id software on the surface, it seems perhaps an acceptable business decision to go this way, right? But then some of the details are also they make you pull your hair out, though, right? And so, like, for sure, if they have about 100 people left or 90 people left, this is still a reasonably sized studio. It's about the size of Double Fine, right? Um, and 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 so it's about the size of the team that they used to put out Doom 2016 back in 2016, right? And so that was a AAA game. They did an amazing job with that game. It revived the Doom franchise, but here's where it starts to get weird, which is, you know, uh, that was probably across 3 games. That was a copy game, right? But more correctly, 10 million players, right? But toward the end of it, right, you have Game Pass kicking in, uh, and so the revenue coming into Microsoft is, it's only coming in from 30 million people instead of 77 million people, which is what they had budgeted for, right? And so that there's a big fall off in the expectations for who would sign up for Game Pass, right? And Doom is not generating money if it is part of Game Pass, right? It is just fulfilling the subscriptions that people have already paid for, right? It's not bringing in additional money. And so this was one of the problems for the studios. Like, do we design for Game Pass and try to make a highly engaging game that keeps people playing for a lot of hours so they don't get rid of their Game Pass subscriptions? It's a pretty kind of intangible measurement of what is the studio's contribution to the bottom line. If they were selling for revenues and profits, they might have made different decisions. Like, it's like, oh, let's make a forever game. Let's make a multiplayer live service game based on Doom, and that might have served them better as generating separate revenues above and beyond whatever comes through the Game Pass audience, right?
Right.
And so these studios were confused about what is their master, like are we just a tech demonstration to attract people to the platform because we show people here's what's possible if you go onto Xbox, right? And so they had too many different masters there, and that starts to get weird. It starts to not count that they have a lot of people playing on Game Pass, right? It's like, where's your success here? This is starting to drop off. Well, yeah, it was the third Doom game, right? And so people might have been getting tired of Doom, right? But yeah, then when they actually lay off people, they don't shave them back so that 90 or 100 people can make a full game now, right? They eliminated whole departments in this layoff, right? A lot of the designers are gone, a lot of the programmers are gone, a lot of the engine people are gone, and they're still saying, oh, we're not killing the game engine, right? But also, as is, it cannot put out a game, right? It has whole missing departments now that it has to somehow strangely backfill, right? And yet, they also unionized, right? And they had more than half the studio, in order to unionize, had to be union members, right? And the union said 70% of the union members got laid off, right? And so that's another kind of consideration that makes people suspicious about like what is really going on here, right?
Yeah.
And they kept some departments untouched, like say cinematics, right? And so yeah, you could argue that this is getting back to reality. We're reducing the size of a studio that became bloated, but 200 people as a studio within Microsoft, they were one of the smaller studios, right?
Yeah.
You think about that way. So on so many levels, it just raises more questions about, do they know what they're doing at Xbox, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, we should also caveat this, our discussion with the fact that we don't have any more information than the rest of you all do, right? We don't have access to the books, right, to what's going inside. So we can only glean from,
Yeah.
you know.
I would point out that the reason we know this is we interviewed laid off people.
Yes.
Right. So,
Right.
so
Yes.
We, through that, we found out, for example, what games they were working on, right?
Right.
Or which proposals they were pitching. And, evidently they were caught in a very awkward in-between phase, right? Where they did not have a big project that was core to the company in the works right now. Like they had just finished DLC, right? And I think they were about to enter that time where they had to really decide what to do next. Right?
Yeah. Well, what I was going to add there, Dean, and thanks for clarifying the fact that information is coming because we have incredible journalists like yourself, like your team, right, that can have those conversations, help to surface this stuff, right? Again, armchair quarterbacking this, right, from the outside. I mean, where they are right now, this has been coming for a long time. Right. Mm-hmm. And if we think about where the brand was during the Xbox One era, the over rotation on things that weren't games and kind of the fragmentation we saw in the community, and hardware then falls behind competitors. Game Pass comes in and creates this space for the quote unquote Netflix of games, which we know just hasn't been a sustainable thing for a variety of reasons, right? For a large segment of the market. Asha and the team inherited kind of, years long kind of issues that started to grow when it was discovered that, at least in one spot within the organization, had 14 layers of management to make a decision. Like, that's just untenable. Like, you can't run a business like that. You can't run teams like that. Right? It's too big. What I will say is, a lot of this comes down to optics, right, as well. Business decisions against the optics. I think one of the things, and I'll, basically just say it out here, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit was in a Bloomberg interview that Asha had done, and talking about the first 100 days. The comment that was made was, I felt like my first job as CEO of Xbox was to understand the soul of the Xbox, understand the soul of what makes art, to understand the soul of creating, understand the soul of the platform and what kind of made us great for the first 25 years. I'm sorry, you can't do that in 100 days and have clarity, right? And so when I think about, and I'm not saying that it isn't a genuine, kind of discussion that she's having about really wanting to understand that. The way it's framed, and then the positive things happen, and then the cuts that came after. I think about Strauss Zelnick's comment when asked about, hey, you're leading this company, and as a gamer, how does it make you feel? And his comment was, I'm not a gamer. I'm not somebody who plays video games. But what I am is somebody who knows how to build the right environment, the right studios, the right protections for that brilliance to kind of come through. And then you go, okay, so this is somebody who understands that that's not where their core expertise. They're not trying to, hey, fellow gamers, walk their way into the room. It's like, no, that is why I put together this space for brilliant game designers, storytellers, artists, musicians, right, to come together.
Hang on. I just gonna have to take a moment there.
You can, and of course, as somebody who was there, right?
Strauss Zelnick took over whatever it was 17 years ago, and very little has gotten signed to Take-Two since then.
Sure.
There's almost no new IP since Ryan retired.
No. I completely get that. My point isn't whether or not you believe X or Y. The point is the optics in this space where already people are hurting. And then it's like, well, in 100 days, I figured it all out. And the answer is going to be, I'm going to let 3,200, jobs go. Right.
Yeah. And
I can see,
to Richard Brown's point, I wonder, I'm on two minds on this. Sega kind of pulled stuff around when they got out of the hardware business. I don't know if Microsoft's ever going to do that and be a game publisher. But on the other hand, they control so much IP now on the back of the Activision acquisition.
The biggest
Like,
acquisition in their history, right? By a factor of 3. Yes.
And they could squander all of that right now.
Right.
So that's frightening, really frightening.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, regardless of this, you know, I think one of the
very
I'll say the ripple effect from this, sad. and then I'll stop, is the people that are left there now are in a bit of a state of limbo, right? You now have survivor's guilt and uncertainty wrapped up into the same people left behind trying to figure this out. So again, our hearts go out.
1,600 more layoffs coming.
Right, exactly. And if you're sitting there going, how do I know? And we've all seen, you know, the posts that have popped up about, I've been here for 27 years and all of a sudden this is just kind of what happened. Is all this to say, we're so sorry, you know, our hearts are with you. However we can help, you know, lean out, ask for that help. I know Amir just amazingly did this 2-hour live stream on Wednesday evening, basically helping people understand all the tools and resources that are available to them through, you know, the Always Supporting Games community group, which the URL is in the Chiron at the bottom there. Yeah, please reach out. I'm not going to sit here and say, you know, oh, you know, understand everything. I've been through it too, you know, like all of a sudden getting wiped out of a company, right, through no fault of your own. It sucks. It sucks. And just here to help. So however we can help, please reach out.
Yeah. Definitely that.
Yeah, I think you can still see some of the strategy that Asha has emphasized, as well as like Matthew Ball, who's the new chief strategy officer, that they are investing in UGC, right? And so Minecraft is being, you know, hauled up to report directly to Asha, and Minecraft's leader is now going to be the COO. I'm not sure how she fits in with what Matt Booty was doing. I guess he's still head of studios, but he was previously kind of more like number 2, right? So, so they have said through that they're emphasizing, you know, the growth opportunities, which, you know, they had said most of their effort had been before focused on parts of the market that are stagnant or shrinking, right? And UGC, on the other hand, is growing, and I think, you know, they're investing in Minecraft. They're investing in King, which is also going to be reporting directly to Asha as well. Mm-hmm. And so mobile, UGC, it sounds reasonable. But if you look at Minecraft, I guess it's been mentioned that they subsidize, you know, the profits from Minecraft subsidized a lot of mistakes elsewhere across the portfolio. And I think what is happening now is that everybody's being told you got to carry your own weight, right? And that also sounds, you know, reasonable. But I do wonder how much overreaction there is here to one of the biggest problems, which was last year, Call of Duty, you know, sank like a stone, right? Mm-hmm. And then it made everything else. You could see what all the problems were in the shallow water there, right? And so, you know, Call of Duty had a bad year last year. It feels like what they have now coming this year is going to be good, right? But it's also going to compete against Grand Theft Auto 6, right? And so you don't know whether Call of Duty is really going to make a comeback or not. And yeah, with a year like Grand Theft Auto 6 coming, then a lot of the other things being put out by all Microsoft studios, like, you know, they just may not do as well this year. But I do think that Call of Duty coming back is something that is probably a good narrative for this year. Like, it's a good game. They've been working on this one for 4 years. It doesn't look crazy like the last Call of Duty did, and the last Call of Duty had you fighting against like giant monsters, right? Which was just not Call of Duty, right? And right. So they're getting back to what the core of the fans want. It's set in South Korea, and, you know, North Korea is invading. It's like a very compelling narrative, right? So I think Call of Duty is going to do well this year. If it does well, was all of this necessary, right? Was all of this, you know, sort of switch in direction, um, something that they really, really had to do. They've already had 4 layoffs in the last 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did they really have to go and take these steps that were very, very deep for studios like Obsidian and for id Software, Bethesda, right? All of these ones, ZeniMax Online, all these ones that got hit very hard. Uh, it didn't feel like they were super fat in that sense, where people love to say it's great when a CEO cuts out the fat, right? But anyway, I'll stop there.
I hate that expression more than
Yes,
anything.
I hate that too. Right? That just implies that what you're cutting away is worthless, and that is absolutely not the case at all. Right?
I sadly have to jump. Like I said, I was going to have to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. We got to stay cool as you always are. See, that's that double meaning right there.
No, and I just want to say, like, from the comments and like from what Mike Rubinelli just said, like, it's just really great to see how our industry looks after itself. Like, this whole podcast was started around what happened with the Unity and the runtime thing, right?
Yeah.
And folks like Amir are doing such a wonderful job, and Dean with like the John's article. Like, I think we all care about each other and want to figure out a way out of this. So
that's right. And appreciate
I'm
you all.
very happy to be in this industry.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you all being able to jump in, as you can, on these Fridays. I know it's late for you, Susan, but
the
love you.
100-degree heat here in the UK, man.
I know.
I'm
love you,
spritzing.
and our love to the team over there, and to Lee and everybody. And
you too. And I'll report back from Develop next week. I should be on next Friday. Develop is next week in Brighton. I'll report in on how that goes.
Perfect. So before you leave, I'll make this one announcement here as well. In 2 weeks, we will have the CEO, Stan, of the ESA, who will be joining us on Boss Rush to talk about the work that they're doing on behalf of the industry, to talk about the US 250th anniversary and where video games kind of fits into all that. So I just got that confirmed. And so we're going to have Stan join us on the 24th. Okay.
Cool stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah,
all right, Susan.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So yeah, Dean, we a lot of I think we've covered enough that maybe we should move on to some of the other the stories that are big and happening this week. So people in the chat, let us know what you want to hear.
A lot of interesting things happened this week in addition to this, right? For sure. Kind of overshadowed maybe, but still, I think the Esports World Cup got underway in Paris this week. They had a huge opening ceremony, and it's got all of the events that they had scheduled for Riyadh, but because of the Iran war, they had to relocate really fast. I think Ralph Reichert opened and said in one of his interviews that they had 47 days to shift the Esports World Cup from Riyadh to Paris, and so far it looks like it's come off, without a hitch. There's 200 teams there, 25 different games, and a $75 million prize pool. So it's still going to be the biggest thing in esports this year, and so that's interesting.
Yeah, no, very cool, and it's good to see that that money still gets pumped into that, and those events are still happening. So yeah, awesome.
And then I had spent a fair amount of time also interviewing a team in India called Terra Gaming.
Yeah.
And they're doing a very interesting game that's coming off the lesson of Black Myth Wukong, which sold 25 million copies right off the bat. I think it's at 30 million now, and it really put the Chinese game industry on the map and made everybody see that something that was based on Chinese mythology could be really popular outside of China on the global stage, right? And so it was a big lesson. It's why, say, NetEase pulled back and focused more on the Chinese market, games for the Chinese market,
Mm-hmm.
and with the expectation that those games could go global, just as like a lot of American games go global. And so India is looking at this and going like, yeah, it's true we're about 15 years behind China when it comes to really stoking the game industry, but we want to do the same thing. And so this Tower Gaming has come up with a game called The Age of Bharat, which is based on Indian mythology, the Ramayana in particular, and um, they've put together a very interesting team focused on AAA as opposed to focused on mobile, which is 95% of the Indian market. They think that something like this can help drive, um, that particular 5% to grow.
Right.
Uh, it is, by the way, also about 25 million people that are that 5%, right? So um, the Indian market is huge already. Plus, they also are designing the game so that it can do well on the global stage. And they have a guy named Nuruddin Abood, and he is uh, a 25-year game veteran who spent a lot of his time on the Ghost Recon franchise working for Ubisoft
Mm.
and working with teams that are in places like India for that purpose. And so what he noted when he was doing an interview was that India already has a lot of these teams in place. These AAA teams are very actively developing games in India, but they're working, as contractors really for other uh, big AAA companies, right? And so
Mm.
that's the maybe hidden part of India's game industry is that yeah, the market itself is very focused on mobile, but they have all this talent that's been working for decades now on AAA games. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really good to make sure, as we're thinking about all of this, that, the world of games, game development is much bigger than, just the Western market and the pressures that we have here. One of the, so I love hearing all of that. Another announcement that was just made recently, and this is picked up over here on gamesindustry.biz, was Supercell launches equity-free grants program for Africa-based game studios. And this is coming off the back of their Games First Summit that took place in June, which, full disclosure, I was asked to go and give the keynote there, which was just wonderful. And not the keynote was wonderful, people were wonderful. But looking at the development that's happening there in the region is awesome, right? And companies, again, like Supercell are leaning in to help, right, these new emerging, pockets of game development find footing and the resources to basically go ahead and build stuff. So, yeah, it's, it's truly a global art form, and the pathways into a global market, right, are better than they've ever been before. And we're going to continue to see more investment take place in, I think, just a wider swath of game development globally that, is positive, right? And so, yeah. So congrats to Supercell for putting that program in place. Equity-free grants of $20,000 to $200,000, which is amazing. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good story. We didn't get to that one, but I think we're still get somebody on it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was one of those. It's where when it's a busy week like it is, where you're hunting down like
Oh
interviews
yeah,
with
yeah.
great
No, you
awesome
can't
people.
cover
It's like,
everything, Dean. So we lean into our collective, friends there, right?
yeah,
So let's
but yeah,
pivot
there's
to
other
another big
others
story
for
that
sure.
happened, Dean. Sony made an announcement about not
Oh yeah.
doing physical games anymore.
Mhm.
Thoughts?
Well, I was surprised in some way at the reaction to this move because when you hear that like 90% of the market for a lot of Take Two's games, as an example, is digital now, then you just don't think so much about the physical market and how attached people are to it. But everybody spoke up, especially on social media, at how terrible an idea they thought this was for Sony to decide that by January 2028 it was going to stop supporting physical uh, discs in its you know um, uh, lineup of games. And
Right.
I think what that means is the part that they couldn't talk about or they can't announce yet, which is, by this time you're going to have a new game console that doesn't have a disk drive in it, right? And so um, there are still solutions to this particular um, problem, which many people have. Like, many people don't have the internet. Many people um, love just the sort of feel of physical cases and cartridges. They collect them.
Yeah.
So it's a big sort of uh, 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 trend that's popular in retro circles, especially, I think.
Hmm.
But what they could have communicated is that it's too expensive to try to do this still, right? Uh, a lot of, say, the cost of what Sony is collecting here from fees from developers on the games they sell has to do with the costs they incur for things like making these physical discs. Uh, they're cheap now, so they're not as expensive to make as they used to be, but they are going down in volume as well. And I think
Hmm.
um, when you think about the next generation of consoles, they're going to be extremely expensive already because of a 7 times increase in memory chip prices that is hitting
Yep.
the industry right now. And something has to go to compensate for that. Otherwise, you will be paying higher prices for those next generation consoles, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And so I think this is an attempt by Sony to say, look, we give up. We can't carry this cost anymore, um, and uh, and so we're going to cut that console or physical disc support. I think the problem that a lot of people are pointing out, though, is that, well, you could have just made the physical disc possible through a USB port, right? um,
Hmm.
and if you enable um, uh, you know uh, third-party disk drives, to be usable with your console, um, which, like, say, on Xbox, they're not, right? For the Xbox Series S, right?
Right.
You can't do that, right? uh, but if they enable that, then people could still actually continue with their physical discs. Sony could offload the manufacturing of this to other people,
Hmm.
maybe still get some kind of cut out of it, and still hang on to maybe 10% of the market, right? That really loves this. So, so I think there's ways for them to have done this in a better way of communicating. They possibly could have made the announcement in conjunction with some of these other kinds of announcements, right? Um,
Right.
but they chose not to, and apparently this probably means that they might have been blindsided by this response too. That maybe they didn't realize how attached people are to physical discs.
Uh, Great points, all. And there's a lot of great points that are getting brought up here in the chat. And I think, part of that was more than likely a timing issue of people already being hit with this uncertainty. And now this other thing is being taken away. Right. And so, right, people already are in this heightened state of emotion. And now that was more on top of it. And it could, very well direct the way people, think about what the next console is going to be or where they're going to continue to play. Right? It's not as if we've had any shortage of digital distribution, but once I think the idea that I can't own this thing anymore, right here, right, that creates some consternation. Especially, I think it's really interesting. We look at other forms of media right now. What's happening right now? I mean, I just saw a review right on YouTube for a brand new like portable DVD player, or a CD player rather, that came out, and they were talking about why this is so important because CD purchases are back on the rise. Like, there is a segment of the market that is rotating back towards physical media, physical ownership. And so as this came out, I imagine, right, it's now kind of hitting that wall of other forms of media, right, in the friction maxing world that is on the rise. So it's, I think it was more than likely, inevitable that it moves in that direction. But, a lot of this also comes down to timing, right? It comes down to how this is said. There was another story that came out, Dean, about Xbox is reportedly considering dropping disk drives as it tests a new feature that lets players digitize their physical games.
Yeah.
And so they're saying here's digital entitlement will be revoked if the game is shared or sold. So now it's like, okay, you're going to digitize the physical stuff you have, but it's removed all of the consumer protections, right, of me being able to hand a disc to my buddy Dean and let you take that home and play it, right? So it is just so many messages happening all at the same time, right? I think is creating this very heightened set of conversations that we're all experiencing.
Yeah, I think one interesting other side sort of story here was with 33 Games and Beyond the Pixels partnering on something they called the Forever Project to sort of push back and to still encourage the physical editions to sort of be unified in something like more like a PC and Mac based platform. I think that would still allow people to purchase physical discs. So there's different solutions out there that people are proposing, I think. And it might be very interesting for Xbox now to consider all of this pushback against Sony and to maybe try to do something a little more open, say, I think, and allow for that USB connected drive to exist, I think.
Yeah.
And then,
didn't they try a USB connected drive at one point in their past? That was the HD DVD versus Blu-ray back in the day. Remember, you had to get this sidecar.
I mean, also though they tried to put that inside the console too, right? And that was a hard lesson as well about put the wrong thing in.
And we should mention too, Beyond the Pixels, we've mentioned Astroburn, which is Hasdewell, his company, Beyond the Pixels, and doing Astroburn, and he showed me the SNES cartridge style thing they had and all the physical pieces, and I love it, right? Just absolutely love it. So, look, we are sharing our personal opinions with everything that's going on here, right? It's and that's what you're listening to us for, right? Just our own personal opinions. What's happening?
Personal opinions.
Yeah. But let's talk about another story that you did here, Dean, that I'd love to see too, about a company that has survived for 40 years, which was Stern Pinball. And
yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that interview with Gary Stern? That must have been awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was very interesting that Stern goes all the way back really to the 1930s because his father, I think it was Sam Stern, right? He was a distributor for pinball during those early years in 1930. By 1947, he teamed up and became half owner of Williams. And then he passed away in 1986. And at that point, Gary had grown up working for his father, really, and just, understood the pinball business and took over, started something working for Data East. And then he kind of bounced around a lot. Like Data East, shut it down. They started something else on their own. It was the same people, and it became Stern Pinball. And what was um, what was interesting about that time was everybody was going like, why are you starting pinball? In, in this climate now, where video games are killing off pinball, they're killing off all the arcades, right? Video game systems at home are taking over, and uh, on top of that, there's all these other established, uh, pinball companies like Williams, etc. And then, when I was interviewing Gary, he said, thank God we did that because we're the only ones left now.
Right.
And all those other ones have, moved on in some way, right? The brands might still be here, but they're off not doing pinball. Whereas um, the thing that rose to support something like Stern Pinball really was the growth of the retro market, really, where people decided, oh, I'm going to have a pinball machine in my house. Some of these machines are fairly expensive at $5,000 or so, but they really suit the tastes of people who actually might get their money's worth.
Well, Dean, I will share with you,
playing pinball at home.
if
Right?
only they were $5,000. As somebody who has been looking at the space,
5,000 to 15,000, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's typically you're going to spend
Yeah.
anywhere from 10 to 12 up to 20 plus thousand for one of these new machines, which is why there's just no way I'm ever going to be able to own. I'm like, I would just be knocking on your door to crash on your couch, because if I brought that home, my wife would be like, get out. Like, what are you What are you thinking? Right, as much as I would love to. Yeah. But now there are 3 pinball companies, I believe, that are manufacturing this stuff.
Right. There's some that are making fairly cheap machines too, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's very interesting that pinball still survived in this age of video games by catering to the folks who just wish for simpler times, right? And the retro movement in games is very strong, and it's keeping pinball alive, right? And
100%. So I would say yes, and with some of the things that we've been talking about, I've been talking about this publicly in this talk I've been giving since the middle of last year, which is, it is that, again, that Gen X, Gen Y generation, as they start to move further into retirement and they go back to the things that brought them joy when they were younger, that is what they were doing, was pinball and video games, right? When you look at that period of your life when it's all about, your friends and cool things and things of that nature. And we're only going to continue to see that accelerate. So the companies that can lean into that, to that pent up, right, desire to engage in this stuff with the things, again, from their child that brought them joy, are going to continue to flourish there, right? It's only going to get bigger. The amount of people who are actively looking to play video games, it's just the next biggest cohort may not have done it for a long time, may have forgotten why it was important, may not understand how to get in. Pinball is an easy way, right? Or an easier way. It's physical, it's there, it's simple controls, but very complex gameplay that you build over time. It's a social thing as well. And so, yeah, I love that they're doing it, and I love that pinball didn't cease, right, to exist. Yeah, and only just more to come. So, yeah. We had a bunch of other things.
Any other things you wanted to?
Yeah, I was going to say, before we get to the end here, there was an Apple TV Neuromancer discussion that I would love your quick opinion on. Because when I think about what Bandersnatch did, right, which was, let's face it, right, it was Dragon's Lair, but right, in a longer form with TV. Can you tell us a bit about what you discovered in your interview regarding the?
Well, sadly, I did not interview anyone yet about Neuromancer,
okay.
but I did write that story where Apple TV teased something on Twitter saying Neuromancer is coming as a new streaming show for Apple TV this fall. And so, yeah, it's it's kind of wonderful to see that you know people remember that before Snow Crash and the term metaverse was coined, William Gibson in back in the 1980s wrote Snow Crash sorry, he wrote Neuromancer a decade earlier
Yep.
and coined the term cyberspace back then, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it is still a great story. I liked how the teaser looked in that, they had this old style TV, analog TV, with like text showing up on the screen like an old monitor, right? So
Yes.
um, you kind of wonder like, well, what is this? Is this really super sci-fi, the way you would expect a cyberspace show to be today, or is it something that is going to remind us maybe of the 1980s and what was possible back then? So,
Yeah.
but it was a sci-fi story for sure, right?
Oh yeah.
And a good one, I think. And Gibson, just is always a great storyteller. I really enjoyed the Peripheral book that he did much later, and Amazon turned into a show that Lisa Joy worked on,
Mm-hmm.
and it really did a great job of sort of depicting kind of a cyberspace space blended with reality, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like this augmented reality uh, existence with VR headsets as well,
Yeah.
right? So I thought that was just very well done, and I think I'm sure that maybe that triggered the notion that you could do Neuromancer in the same way.
Yeah. Well, I also like cyberspice. I'll take that. Cyberspice sounds good. A little flavor for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll have. I know. Look, it was important to have the discussion about the things that most impacted so many people within our industry, and took a lot of time today to do that. We'll be back next week to talk, about some of the other stories that popped up that are definitely worth talking. But we're right here at the bottom of the hour. So let's go ahead and talk a bit about what you're playing right now. So share, Dean. What are you playing?
I'm trying to get a monitor problem fixed. So if I were playing, I would be playing more Arc Raiders, I think, right now. There's a lot, but there's also the new Doom Revelations DLC that came out this week, which is id's latest and possibly who knows, one of its last contributions. But it's a very interesting addition of, like, last time they combined melee combat with shooting, with a very interesting shield, and now you have a spear that you add to that to melee capability, attached to a grappling hook as well, and that this also is a sort of a big change in gameplay itself, and I think that's what id has been great at, is just showing new kinds of gameplay in the same setting,
Right.
with different kinds of mechanics, right? So this should be very interesting.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm still going back and digging through back catalog stuff as well. And if I've mentioned it before, but you haven't seen it, have you seen West of Loathing before?
Oh no.
So West of Loathing is a stick figure line drawing RPG that is hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And I've been going back through and playing this on my Switch 2. I think I may have mentioned in a previous live that one of the first things that you acquire when you're playing is this book called I think it's called The Book of Walking Stupid. And when you read it, it just changes your walk cycle animation into ridiculous, like shapes, walking on your hands or walking stiff with your arms out or tumbleweeding everywhere or slithering like a snake. It doesn't do anything other than change your walk cycle. And that's like the first gag that it throws at you. really, really awesome. So I'm going back and playing West of Loathing. It's just a wonderful, wonderful game. And then also going in and playing Mina the Howler, which just phenomenal throwback style game from Yacht Club Games. And they just do, it's just such a lovely game. So yeah, those are the two that I've been going back and playing right now. But but that's about it, my man. That brings us really to the close of the hour here. And I want to go ahead and thank Dean Takahashi and Susan Cummings for joining us today on Boss Rush.
Thank one more person again.
Yeah.
So Amir Satvat.
Yes.
He did a Wednesday night evening. I think it was at least 2 hours.
Yep, it was a 2 hour long meeting.
Yeah, to help people who had been laid off, and it's just part of his ASGC.GG community help that he does for people who are looking for jobs in the game industry. So awesome to see that work from Amir again.
Yep, absolutely. And had the chance to sit in on it for a while, and just wonderful recommendation and advice and a highlight of all the different tools and resources available. So we have the URL that scrolls in the Chiron underneath. So make sure you go ahead and check that out, which is asgc.gg. Once again, thank you to Amir, to everybody in that community that is, reaching out to support and lift each other up. And I'll just close by saying the work you do matters. The art you create matters. The industry is going to continue to endure. We are still growing. It's going to change, and reach out to your friends and colleagues right in the community to help as we go forward. So sending you all a bunch of love and best wishes for soft landings and new opportunities. And once again, reach out if we can be of assistance. So thanks everybody for joining us this week on Boss Rush. Dean, thank you. And we'll see you all next week. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks.